Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here, and welcome to Distribution Talk. This is one of those episodes where I'm going to go solo again rather than invite a guest. I want to talk a little bit about a subject that's been coming up lately in my practice, and maybe you'll be able to relate to this. As you might know, I work with a lot of younger managers or newer managers, not necessarily always younger, but newer managers into their role. And, one of the things that I found about newer managers is that they tend to like to take on everything that they possibly can. They just have a really difficult time with delegating. But I think the bigger thing is that they become overwhelmed because maybe they're trying to prove something to the peers that maybe didn't get promoted, and they're trying to say, "Hey, I'm still one of you, and I'm gonna still work as hard or maybe even harder." And so they tend to start killing themselves really in the work. And they're working longer hours and that type of thing. And unfortunately, they're starting to take things home, and they're not sleeping well at night. So I've seen a lot of this happen. And again, it's especially true with people who have just been recently promoted and they're just still trying to figure out some things. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was maybe how to use a day end routine to really help manage your day. One of my clients a while back, he put it in a really great way. He said, get your arms around the day before it gets its arms around you. And I thought that was a fantastic way to describe what happens to most people if they don't plan ahead, if they don't think about that day ahead of time. So I want to share something that was given to me a while back about building this day end routine and see if maybe it helps you. Because one of the big things it'll prevent is that, middle of the night wake up, oh, I got to do this, or I forgot to do that. Or, if you think about it, you're driving home, and I'm sure many of you have had that epiphany moment. Oh, I got to remember to do this. And you try to scribble it down and you do a little knee steering, or, basically cause, a little mayhem, reckless driving behavior out there. Or, as I said before, in the middle of the night, you wake up and you're like, oh, I have to remember to do that. I have to remember to call that person, or I have to get that done. And you really just disrupt your sleep. So you're not all that effective the next day anyway. So this is one of those skills that I've learned over time about helping you really leave work at work and try to avoid those pop-up brain moments when you think, oh, I've got to remember to do something. So the day end routine, as is it taught to me, and how I teach it now, and I spend a lot of time teaching this actually, is really fairly simple, but it does require a discipline. So, what I challenge people to do is at the end of their day, and let's say that you typically knock off at about 5 o'clock, I'm going to ask you to take a half an hour. Maybe at 4:30, I want you to close the door. I want you to put your phone in a desk, or turn your phone on mute, whatever you have to do to really find some quiet time, some peaceful time here to try to think about this critically about your day. That's really what we're going to do. We're really downloading what happened today and give ourselves that opportunity to start fresh the next morning. So while you're sitting down, I want you to think about those open items, the things that you didn't quite get done, and you're going to have to jump on the next day. And so, just spit them out, put them out on paper. And I'll tell you, there is something phenomenally magical about putting pen to paper, putting those things down so that you can remember. Because it's really, once you put it out there, then you're almost relieved of that burden. It's like this weight coming off of your shoulders when you get it down on paper, because now it's a record. It's there for you to pick up and move on with the next day, or whenever you decide to pick that up. So putting that pencil or pen to paper, really cathartic at the end of the day. So write down those things. What do I have to jump on tomorrow? What are the big things, little things? How can I get everything out of my head so I have a reasonable chance of not waking up, in the middle of the night saying, oh, I've got to remember to do that. But besides that, and that's fairly common. A lot of people make task lists. That's a really common thing. But here's the little things that were added to it that, really started me thinking about this day end routine. And one of the things is I'd like to see people write down the things that they did well. Just three things or three successes. Maybe it was an interaction with a customer, maybe it was an interaction with an employee, but what did you do right? Because I think often we're really, really good at remembering the critical things, the things that we screwed up. We don't often remember the things that we did right because it'd be awful nice to replicate those. And so my challenge to you is write down three things that you did right, that you're happy about the way they turned out, and you'd like to do that again. Conversely, go ahead and write down three things that you might need to work on. Something that you probably need to either get some help on or develop better skills around, or maybe an interaction that didn't go as well as you thought it probably should have. Write that down. And so now you've got this on paper. And again, there's that cathartic, getting rid of this out of your head and getting it down on paper. It kind of takes the sting out of it and you won't dwell on it. Again, take some time. Three successes, three challenges. And when you get all that together, now that's a pretty good 30-minute exercise. So as I said, take a little bit of time to do this. Now, if you start getting better at it, that's when I would say, all right, let's add one more component. And this is one that it might take you a little bit of time to get to it. And I know some of you, you're like, oh, how can I get 30 minutes at the end of the day? It's a forced situation. Obviously, many of you, and trust me, I struggle with this myself, but it's something that you're going to have to force yourself to do is to take this time. But once you start getting good at creating this day end routine, you're going to get a little more efficient at it, a little quicker. Maybe you decide to move to an electronic format to do it in, not necessarily pen to paper. But then I'd like you to add one more piece, and that's taking time to sharpen the saw. Taking time to sharpen the saw actually comes from a Stephen Covey comment, and it was actually the seventh habit of his Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that last chapter, the seventh habit is that taking the time to sharpen the saw. So what does that really mean? Well, what it means is really it's personal growth. Take time for developing yourself. Really, it could be a lot of different things. It could be reading a trade article. All of us have these magazines that we get sent, whether we like it or not, and there's articles in them. And I write those articles. So it'd be awful nice if you would read them. But, there are stacks of articles or newsletters or things that kind of litter your desk. Take a little time at the end of the day and read an article. Just read something. And what we're really trying to do is grow. Find things that will actually develop your mind just a little bit. And it could be the printed word, you could be articles. It could be something you find online. I mean, I happen to enjoy YouTube videos. I found some phenomenal YouTube videos that I use in my teaching all the time, just interesting lessons. People share amazing things for free on YouTube. This is why I love it so much. So maybe go look for a YouTube video, or as you are doing right now, listen to a podcast, something that's going to expand your mind or give you entertainment, whatever it may be. Again, taking time to sharpen the saw is really about personal growth and personal development. So when you start adding these things together, you rid yourself of all of these things that are trapped in your head, the things that you have to jump on the next day. You take a couple minutes to write down some of the things that went really well today. And then conversely, some of the things you'd like to either get a do over on or you'd like to work on. And then sharpening the saw. Now you've got this solid day end routine. I'm telling you, if you really take the time to do this, you're not going to wake up in the middle of the night thinking, oh gosh, I have to remember to do that. You're going to start, getting your arms around the day, like my client said earlier. One of the things though, I do want to mention those open items. Again, a lot of people have task lists, and it's great to have a task list next to you and you can check off tasks as you go through the day. And, that's a form of organization. But see, if you're anything like me, man, I love checklists. And so, I like to check off things. And so I'm going to jump on those little nickel dime stuff, the stuff I can bang out in 5, 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And because, man, I want to just check some stuff off my list. Well, unfortunately, most of the stuff that I check off and those really quick, easy tasks, they're not really meaningful. they're not going to advance my career. They're not going to win me more clients. They're not going to find me more guests or whatever the bigger picture might be. So, with that task list, I challenge you to go back and actually find a way to prioritize it. I'm a huge fan of a gentleman named Brian Tracy. He wrote a book years ago called Eat That Frog 21 Ways to Quit Procrastinating or Stop Procrastinating and Get More Done. And I'll tell you, I mean, he wrote that probably back in the 80s and it's still solid gold. I mean, I absolutely love this book. And for those of you who know me, I rarely recommend books out there. I'm just not a huge business book reader, frankly, because I think most of them are full of drivel. But this one happens to be the one that I would always recommend. I recommend this often to classes I teach is Eat That Frog 21 Ways to Stop Procrastinating and Get More Done by Brian Tracy. And the title of that book actually comes from kind of a funny quote. So I had to go look it up. I'm like, eat that frog. Okay, where did he come up with this? And it actually comes from a Mark Twain quote. If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat two frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. And I thought that was kind of profound because in this, next little bit I'm going to tell you about or talk about is that prioritization. And so one of the things that Brian Tracy talks about in his book is taking the task list that you've created in that end of day routine and assign a letter grade to it. Now, I'm not typically a fan of the ABCs because I think they're way overused in life and in distribution. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and defer to this gentleman's wisdom and talk about, how to prioritize that list. And really, if you're looking at your list of things that you have to get done the next day, A items are things that you must do. These are the things with a high degree of consequence or uh, a high degree of reward if you complete them. And then a B item would be, again, fairly high degree of consequence or reward, but lesser than A. And then ultimately get down to C. It's a nice to do thing. Maybe, email somebody on their birthday or go through LinkedIn and congratulate somebody on a job role or something like those are nice to do things, but they're not going to advance you one way or the other. By looking at that ABC method and really looking at your task list here, you can prioritize the things that are really going to have the greatest impact for your time spent because time is that finite resource that we have to apply our energies to the things that are going to make the greatest impact. So the point with this is you never should start on a B item until the A items are done. Again, going back to the Mark Twain quote, it's best to eat the biggest one first. So attack that A item first. So, first thing in the morning, you get down and you look at your list and you've prioritized these and you just tackle those A items. You bang those out. And when you get those done, you can go after a B item and maybe a C item once all the B's are done. And you probably won't get to those C's, or you might even get halfway through B's. But I'm telling you right now, by the end of the day, you're going to look back and say, I got some stuff done. And that's really, how you become so effective or much more effective in taking control of that day. And really, this isn't just for managers. I tend to teach it in management classes, but this is really for everyone. This can be used in your daily life, whether you're supervising people or not, whatever your profession or you're a student or whatever it may be, whatever your lot in life is, finding ways to prioritize your tasks and go after the biggest ones first. I think that's really the message here. Take a good shot at that end of day routine. And if you can do this, now, as I said before, I'm not really great at doing this. I can do this and I do it on a regular basis, but I'm going to say I don't do it perfectly every day. But I will say this the days that I do it, man, that next day is going to be so much easier than when I wing it. When I wing it, man, things are all over the place. And frankly, I look back at the end of the day and I look back and go, man, what did you get done today? Not much. But if I do the day end routine, I follow, my task list and I look at those big items and go after those first. I look back at the end of the day and like, I got something done today. I think I earned my keep today. So, if this helps you, this is something to take a good look at. See if you can incorporate it into your days. I said before, I love the Brian Tracy stuff. You can find Brian Tracy stuff on YouTube. You can find them all over the place on Audible. If that's your thing, if that's the way that you learn best. But tell you, I really like this. I've shared this with so many different people, and it's truly improved their lives and made it so much easier for them to be comfortable in their roles. And again, not wake up in the middle of the night. That's all I have for today, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider hitting that subscribe button. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area on your podcast application or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.